Morning everyone, it's Yvonne here to do your What's Cracking reading, and later we'll be doing a reading for Taurus. Firstly, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. If you're new on board, welcome. If you're interested in joining me in a membership, all the details are below the screen. If you're after a personal reading with me, my website is back and operational at www.theaussiegoddess.com. All of the readings I offer are there. I have increased my prices now. However, if you would still like a reading at the original price, you would need to book in this week, because I know sometimes we sort of forget that. So, but you'll have to email me. You won't be able to do it through the site. I think that's everything. Feels like it should be. Yeah, okay, I think that's everything. All right, let's get straight into this reading this morning. All right, we're using the, I've gone completely blank, the Ethereal Tarot here. All right, and again, starting off with the Eight of Pentacles. Now, this card has been, I always say to people, there seems to be a card that will be more dominant for a period of time. And it doesn't matter whether I go to another deck or whether I use this deck. Very often the same cards come out. I feel with the Eight of Pentacles, what we have is a lot of our collective working on their own issues, childhood issues, whatever it might be. The other thing I see quite clearly now is people getting assessments made of some of the things that maybe they didn't realize, the ADHDs and the autisms. I think that we're becoming so much more self-aware. Maybe some of those things are a result of, you know, going for years and years and getting a late diagnosis and not understanding when you were younger how those things affected you. So the Eight of Pentacles coming out at the moment doesn't sort of surprise me when I sort of feel the energies are about people working on themselves, like really understanding who they are, understanding that perhaps some of the things they feel or do aren't quite in line with what we'd call the neurotypical person. So this does not surprise me at all. One thing that I find really incredible is how many younger people come through now who've already started to do that work on themselves. And I just feel that it's so good that people are understanding there's a lot more to the human being than what was initially thought. We all thought we were just here to procreate, work, go to work, come back, have a bit of fun in our lives, and that was pretty much it. And I think a lot of people are starting to realize now that that isn't the whole story. So the Eight of Pentacles for me makes me feel like there's a lot of people out there who are particularly working amongst on themselves. And we have the Seven of Pentacles right next to that. So 8, 7, 5, 6, 6 of Pentacles. There you go. So I think a lot of people are understanding that what you put out, the universe will reward you with. And that sort of is starting to become something that I've understood as well. You know, I think that sometimes we want things, but perhaps they're not aligned with our destiny. Because the Seven of Pentacles is about planting seeds for the future. But, you know, if you've done a lot of the work now, maybe your life looks a lot different to what it did before. So, for example, maybe you felt like, you know, having a particular trade wasn't really something you wanted. And now you're starting to understand that is what you want. I feel like here that perhaps you're planting seeds for the future because you're starting to understand perhaps what you're capable of, what is in line with your destiny, but perhaps you're starting to feel that now. You know, there's so many times throughout my life where I had little voices in my ear, and I used to think that that constant sort of almost like a nagging at you to do something, and I would always ignore it. I just thought it was my imagination or whatever. But I realize now, looking back, that that is sort of like your intuition, sort of trying to spur you on to follow something up. So, you know, you'd think about doing something particular and your little voice inside would say, maybe that's not right for you, or, you know, maybe you could be doing something else or focusing on something else. But the little voice would keep going. And it made me realize that that is actually your truth speaking out, but your ego will keep stopping it because it's been loaded. Your ego's been loaded with a lot of stuff that you don't necessarily need. So it's, as I always say, your ego is there for a reason. It's really important to you. You can never erase your ego because your ego keeps you safe. It knows that you're vulnerable. It saves you from doing stupid things, especially if they're dangerous. So we need to have the ego there. The component of ego is really important. What isn't important is what other people install in your ego, or what your schools or your, you know, upbringing, your religion, all of those things install a lot of stuff in you that stays there, that does stop you doing things, but not necessarily the things that are not good for you. So there seems to be some sort of, we have the world back again. Okay, so this has been another one that's been coming up a bit lately. And being it's only in this deck, but the world talks about things that are really, really deep and meaningful, like really digging deep to find what you want. And I figure if you're doing the work on yourself and starting to understand how to manifest things for yourself, then you will start digging deep. Because sometimes we think, I think I talked a little bit about this yesterday, sometimes we think the things we see and the things we know are real. We've never been challenged. We've never challenged ourselves on that before. But we start to realize that not everything we have is real. So, you know, if you have an idea about something and it's stuck really deep within you, sometimes you can think that's a normal thing or a natural thing for us, where it may not be. So it's quite interesting, really, that, oh, yeah, we have the Temperance card. I feel like here that you are being held back. This feels exactly like yesterday. You're being held back by something that you need to let go of. Something is holding you back here, and it's sort of making your life a little less than perfect. My idea of perfection is exactly where you want to be. Um, but sometimes we allow ourselves to be held back by old ideas. It's really interesting because I could go into a million and one things here, but you know, it's always that thing that if something's been installed or programmed into you, you might think that you can't change that. And I often hear people say things, you know, I'm too old to change, or this is who I am, or whatever. And I think, no, you can do whatever you please in terms of changing certain things about yourself. If you're not prepared to change them, then maybe you need to have a look and see whether you have something within you that is holding you back from making the changes that may not necessarily be right. Now that's getting a little deep now, that's getting down into the world, but at the end of the day, if you think you can't change, who put that in your head? If you think you can't go and study at university, who put that in your head? Whoever said that to you has left you with a lasting impression. So it's somebody who said something to you when you were most vulnerable, or because they were jealous and did not want you to succeed beyond what they'd succeeded at. So there is something here that you are still working on. And for many of you, I feel like you really are starting to understand how to do the work. I talk about Dr. Nicole Lepera, not Dr. Lepera, something like that. I read her book not long ago, and I do recommend it because it really aligns with how I think. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm being self-righteous in saying I know it all, because I know I am not the person who knows everything. I study every day because there's just not enough information for me. Like I'm a constant computer. I love to take in new data every day. So, but her book, I think it's Nicola Pera, her book is very aligned with how I think about things. It's very spiritual, but it's also quite psychological. And I sort of come from that perspective too. I think psychology really works for us to a certain point, but there's a level there it doesn't really get to. And that's where you sort of delve into your spirituality. So if you want to do the work, it's called How to Do the Work, then it's a really good book to look through. And for some people, work through. All right, so we have the Four of Pentacles, the Four of Cups, and the Four of Swords straight across. So this is about you building your stability for the future. And we actually have the Hierophant at the end, which even gives it more stability here. It's like you're trying to find your place. And maybe, you know, over time, I can sort of relate to things like this, feeling a bit like an alien, feeling like I didn't belong, feeling like they'd put me in the wrong family, feeling like I didn't quite fit the mold. And I think that when you're having those energies, it's really about you not feeling true to who you are. So, it may be that you're missing the mark a little bit along the way, but I'd say to you, if you recognize that you're not getting what you need to, then it is the time to really dig deep and do the work. Somewhere in your I was going to say somewhere in your personal energy way back, somebody's sort of stuck something in there that isn't quite true. And it's like you've sort of settled into life thinking that is it, you can't do that. I really want to say to people when they say I'm too old, or I don't look right in some way, shape or form, and I think, why is it we do that? But do you think that somebody said that to you at some stage or another and it's cemented in your psyche? So you have three fours and the Hierophant coming out. And there is a progression, obviously, from fours to a five, which means you are finding that stability. But maybe that's where you're at, where you're starting to think that somehow things don't sit right with me, or, you know, I can't find what I'm looking for, whatever it happens to be. And I feel like this is you digging into that. All right, then we have the Emperor coming through, very nice, with the Seven of Wands and the Eight of Cups. So there is a feeling of really getting stuck in and doing this, really starting to understand what you need to do to gain back your power. Now, the very simple things you can start with are things like just doing meditations, maybe focusing on a particular type of meditation. Some people say it's very difficult to do the inner child work by yourself, or without a psychologist. So sometimes it is worth seeing somebody that you can talk to about things to help you normalize things. But I figure, like I said, with psychology, it sort of doesn't seem to take you past a certain point. And I found that even though it was really good to talk things through, I found there were too many blocks for me and not being able to access them. So I feel like psychology works incredibly well for the beginning results of things, but then after that you might want to dig a little deeper. The Ten of Wands, there is a cycle coming to the end here. You do have the Hermit and the Six of Cups. So there's a cycle from your past that is coming to an end. It might mean that you're starting to realize certain things, like growing up with a certain kind of family when you thought it was normal, but now you're starting to understand perhaps that family existence wasn't normal. I used to think that what happened in my family was the norm. And it wasn't until, and I really liked going to other people's houses because I was treated so differently. And that is natural and normal for other people too, because somebody new comes in, they treat them differently. So for a child, you think there's something wrong with you because at home you're treated this way, but every time you visit other people, you're treated in a different way. So those are the sort of things cognitively that a child will go through thinking. My home is not a nice place to be because when I go somewhere else, this is how my life looks and people treat me this way. And that is the sort of thing that installs itself within you that you can work to free yourself from. Your house may have been normal in terms of how everybody acted there, but for you, you're seeing things from a different perspective. And I think that is really, like things that are installed in your head. Like I had a really a racist family, and I could never understand racism. It made no sense to me at all. And I spent a lot of time as a child trying to work through that because it didn't compute. Why do people not like people because they had different coloured skin, or because they, yelled and screamed in the streets, or whatever they did? It was like, that doesn't make sense to me not to like somebody because they look different to you. But it took me years to work that out. So something from your past needs to be released, something that you may be currently working on, which is going to bring you an incredible amount of freedom. And I feel like here, whatever you're working on will help you to understand how to manifest. I do see you digging deep. I do see this beautiful energy of, finding a platform, a stability, building on a new stability. But the change has to occur for all this to happen. So sometimes, like I always say, you reach a point, you think, well, this is it, feels really good, I'm really feeling comfortable with who I am, and then comes the next layer. So it never stops, but it becomes so much more fulfilling living in a life where you know yourself better. All right. My biggest one was anger. I always talk about this because I think other people will relate to this. I used to think it was really odd that I never felt anger, or I never showed anger. Many, many years, way into my 40s probably. And I used to think it was me. But then I started to work on it. And I know I feel angry. I know I feel angry at certain things, but now I know how to express it. When I first started feeling it, it was horrendous because I'd never really allowed myself to go with anger before. And it felt so uncomfortable. I just want to shove it right back where it came from, which was what I've been doing for years and years and years. Girls don't get angry, remember? Oh, we have the arrow. Girls don't get angry. This is card number 3. Girls shouldn't do things like that. Girls shouldn't do that. Girls don't cry. Girls don't show emotion. Oh, we had it all. The arrow. Receiving the symbol reminds you that when you are in alignment with your heart and soul, you are on target and will soon be hitting your mark. Be true to your calling, release attachments, and free yourself from the bondage of unbridled ambition. Now is revealed to be a moment of contact in which your intention meets the material world. There you go, manifestation. The arrow also symbolizes the need to set your creativity free. Okay, when the arrow zings through the air, it is inviting you to pay attention and signifying that you are about to make your mark in some aspect of your life. It illuminates the moment of contact when you know that your desires and intentions have travelled on the wind and landed in the perfect place for your highest good. Trust that your job is relaxed yet focused, keeping your eye on the prize, yet releasing your intention with full expectation that will land as it's supposed to. Don't worry about the how or the exact form. This is not the time to interfere with the manner in which the arrow flies. It will make its mark and you will have cause to celebrate. So I feel like somehow or another something is going to be shown to you very, very shortly to show you that you are on the right track. Sometimes it can be, as I say, a little message when you're watching the movie or the television or whatever else. Sometimes it can come from somebody else. Sometimes it will be a conversation you overhear. Other times it might be numbers showing up a certain way. And it's not always different numbers. It's often the same numbers over and over and over. And it will just continually show itself to you. So whatever the signs are, I had something the other day. And I talked about it in the morning, and then constantly throughout the day it showed its face to me. So I take note of those things. So maybe you do now, but you definitely need to, because I feel like something is going to be shown to you to show you that you are making progress. I will leave you with that. Thank you.